Hello.
Ahoy.
So as always, we shared the agenda doc. There are a couple of topics we already have on it. If you want to add anything else from your side, feel free to just add it. Pretty straightforward.
Hey, Ron.
So Victor, what are you doing on that picture?
I was just about to ask.
It's a training basically that I love to do, and when I had to set up an image, I couldn't find a better one. But I will probably try to switch it.
It does look impressive. So
sorry,
many people. It's a good conversation starter. So
yeah, many people think that I am playing curling.
Curling? Curling is harder than you think.
Yeah, I just never did that, so it's. But here we go.
There you go.
Actually, curling is a good example showing you that day one and day two operations need to work seamlessly together, because just curling doesn't get you anywhere.
Right. Just throwing the rock down the ice doesn't do a thing.
Exactly. Just throwing it into the water. Nobody takes care of it.
I should at least try it once.
Yeah, not like because of my shoulder, it was just a nightmare. But it was like a tournament. It took a long time. It was fun.
So I just make one slight modification to the agenda because I think the conveyor feedback might take longer to discuss. I just want us to hit the other two topics, which most likely go quicker. That's why I'm just moving them up, not speak about conveyor, but just ensure that we hit the ones which are most likely rather quick. And adding some links in here. Yeah, here we go. Yes. Okay, you're already in the GitHub issue. Yeah, we have one more topic to put quickly on the agenda, just as an FYI. Almost stealing all the thunder here by putting everything into an agenda. Takes out the surprise. Okay, as usual, it's 5 minutes past the hour. So for those who are here, great that you're here. For those who want to watch later on online, they can do it as well. And yeah, sorry here. I just have to arrange my windows over here. Feeling a bit sick today. That's why I'm a bit slower than usual. So first topic, Chaos Engineering Working Group setup. So big kudos to the team and Kartik and everybody involved. So they are now ready with their charter. I think it just needs some cleanup work. Also thanks to Jen who worked with them intensively. The plan is to just give it a final run. The only thing we should look into also for you, we will add the link here shortly. And we have a couple more supporters. I think right now for Chaos Engineering, there's roughly like 15 supporters also listed. I think there's more people most likely interested in Chaos Engineering, especially as it's like even 4 tags that are involved in here. But after some cleanup, we can then move this forward towards the TOC so that we can get the working group approved. So does anybody have the link available? Thomas, Alex, and we can just throw it in.
To the charter?
Yeah.
Yeah, one second.
So give it a final read. I think it's in a pretty good shape right now. The idea is that we have an initial set of chairs that just help bootstrap everything and getting it up and running, and then have an official vote on chairs once we get it bootstrapped, like setting up the meetings, like all the usual stuff that needs to happen, setting up GitHub repos. So some people just inherited the pleasure of doing all that chop wood and carry water work here initially until we get it then set up. So yeah, we won't go over it. Take your time, read through it, provide feedback. Next one is, you might have seen it today. We shared it already on Twitter, but also here in this round. As part of cooperative delivery, a topic that came out of actually a couple of interviews that I also did, just talking to people. What's bothering you right now with app delivery? It's like usually a question I like to ask people. And one topic that really came up was, how do we handle multi-tenancy in app delivery and in Kubernetes in general? Like, if you want to build multi-tenant application, either because it's SaaS application or you're running in a big enterprise environment and you want to separate individual applications from each other, what are best practices on setup, on management, and handling all of those? And the idea is that to work on a white paper where we just collect best practices. What are people doing? Also have a roundup of projects that are doing something. I think overall there's like 3 major approaches that people are using today. One is run a separate Kubernetes cluster for every tenant / app that you're running, which is usually not what you want to do. Or in some cases is probably what you want to do. Maybe especially if you work in restricted or high secure environments. Another example is you just separate it by namespaces and hope things work out. And the third one is you run something like recluster and run clusters inside of clusters. And all of them come with their advantages and disadvantages. And just to make it more interesting, sometimes you have also shared components across different tenants that then everybody needs to have some sort of visibility into. So it is very early. Please provide your thoughts, input, feedback on how we could move this forward. But we think this is a great initiative if you get a proper set of people together, just sharing their ideas. Again, the plan is to compile it into a white paper, but initially this is just gathering ideas, what people are doing. I assume that some people already have material or have already done it. And best practices that they use. So I'm obviously looking at you, Chris, from a Red Hat, now AWS perspective. Alex, from your former background, I think there's also something there for the others as well. So feel free to contribute what you find valuable, and then we can move.
So just one quick thing, Alice. So in terms of next steps, it probably makes sense to keep this window open a little bit and to sync up with our colleagues who have been doing this as part of the SIG, and to try and get them on board. But when we, and maybe this is a question for Thomas as well, but when we started the operator white paper, do you just create a Google Doc and then start some sessions based on the working group time? Or did the operator working group come first and then you created the Google Doc?
So I was not there when the operator working group was established. But I think you started the working group and afterwards you started writing the white paper, right? Okay, so in this situation, we're so just for broader knowledge, we're thinking of just leveraging the cooperative delivery group rather than petitioning to start a new working group, because it seems a little unnecessary. So would it be the case that we could find some time on the agenda for those meetings to do an initial spawning of that document? Does that sound sensible?
Yeah. That sounds good. I think it actually kind of lands nicely into that working group. So that makes sense.
I have a question about that. What's the purpose of the white paper? Are we trying to describe the world as it is today, like the different things we have, different options we have inside CNCF projects? Are we trying to?
I can lend a few thoughts. I'm sure Alois and Tom might have some ideas, but there are a lot of opinions. And firstly, I think the thing we need to set is a common taxonomy of words, right? What is a tenant? Is a tenant simply a workload within a namespace? Is it a resource isolation? Is the resource isolation predicated on network namespace, compute, other requirements? So these are all the things that I would love to know what the industry thinks, collate those in. We're not about, you know, the traditional saying of kingmaking here, but to understand the pathology in the industry of what are people doing. For example, the folks at vCluster are doing one thing with standing up an API server. The folks where I used to work were standing up K3s inside of KubeVirt, understanding how people are tackling the challenge of multi-tenancy and what patterns have been successful. I think similarly to the operator white paper, it's not about saying which is best. It's simply to illustrate how we're starting to think about this quite common challenge now being resolved. If anyone wants to add anything to that.
Yeah, and I think also the requirements that people have on multi-tenancy, because sometimes this is also has different meanings for different people. Is it a pure data separation? Is it data, or is it pure compute separation that people are looking for, or compute resource assignment? What are the requirements for like hard versus soft multi-tenancy, like how isolated things should be? And also, I think there's also most likely regulatory requirements we could take into account for from data privacy concerns, depending which industry that you're in. I'm thinking of something, what would it mean like to run, just throwing something out there, like a HIPAA compliant application on Kubernetes in a multi-tenant, multi-SaaS environment? I think it's just collecting information that might already be there. But the people I was speaking to, feedback was people are kind of like trying to reinvent it every time again. And like information is like scattered like all over the place. And a lot of people obviously build SaaS-based applications, like that's one scenario. Others are inside their company have to separate different applications. To give you an example, even like taking our Dynatrace even as an example, we separate each tenant for monitoring from each other to some extent. We also separate, obviously, on a whole different level, our deployment and customer backend systems for exactly different reasons, because there you have to have other compliance requirements again. And just coming up with basic guidance, if this is what you want to achieve, this is what you can do, and maybe just specifying to Alex's point, the taxonomy, what do you actually mean by multi-tenancy and by isolation? What kind of isolation do you really want? In some cases, it might just be resource isolation and then individual billing, also something that seems to be coming up. And then invite projects to say, okay, how they are supporting several of those use cases. Again, not king-making or like fully restricting it to, okay, we only accept like 1 or 2 projects that might already today be part of the CNCF, but really bringing it out in a, what people are usually running into. And I think a lot of companies are running SaaS-based platforms on Kubernetes that exactly have to solve this problem.
So creating a shared language of both solutions and the problem. I think we can, that sounds great. And I think we can add on that for the app delivery and for CNCF, like a map of the problem area and solutions inside CNCF that solve that. So kind of creating a map of like there's maps or other areas like that, and we can spot on and say, well, those areas doesn't have any project. That can be a good place for someone that wants to suggest a project for those areas. So with a lot of projects, we need to understand which one is graduating there.
Yeah, and people also bring up specific questions that they might be having in that area. Like even delivery itself is an issue. Very often you deliver applications, even the same applications, and independently per tenant. How do you handle updates? How to handle things like downtime, uptime management? I think people will bring up a lot of issues. I think the basic one is, okay, I want to have this multi-tenancy, describe what we mean, which level. Maybe we come up with levels. I don't know yet, and I don't want to like say this is what the outcome must be. I think that's then up to everybody who wants to contribute. And this is how you can achieve it. And this is like what's like really hard to do. And these are the problems that you run into. I also cross-posted it today to the security tag because they are an obvious candidate to collaborate on this.
Also tag observability, you know, that could be a really big, and those folks are super active, so I'm sure they have a lot of opinions.
Yeah. but I would not go into it like this is exactly what it's supposed to look like. I'd rather collect people's opinions, what they're looking into, what they care about, and then mold it into a structure. For the operator white paper, we did this as well. That process took a bit longer than it ideally would take, like getting everybody just speaking the same language, getting the same understanding, and they took 1.5 years. I think that's not how long this might take, but just having a point where we discuss this is like super helpful and useful. I think it was a great value to the community. So I would keep it rather open. Really invite, and it's obviously up to cooperative delivery chairs. So invite people, talk what they need to know, what they have done, what they care about, what their questions are, and then get this into a structure and then further discuss it. Then rather than restricting, this is only what we want to do in here, keeping it open right now. And then people might also say, well, this is interesting, but we have no idea how to do it. So let's really leave it out of the first version of the white paper. Does this answer your question, Omar, by not perfectly answering?
Yeah, no, it's perfectly answering. Like I think it's for me it's more clear now. Like we will get a common language, we get a common problem statement. That I'm thinking of that as my hat inside Snyk. Like we are looking at multiple teams using the same cluster and how we separate permissions and keeping the cluster healthy. We also have like multiple clusters running the same workload. So yeah, being able to read a doc that will help me set the world, the problem world, but also map of solutions or areas that can really help me and will be good for the tag.
Okay,
Yeah. I think there's a lot of things that can be discussed there, and there's a lot of different, like there's no one solution fits all. So yeah, when it comes to certain governmental, or just local restrictions that you have, or like how we want to separate. So it's probably going to be a really like a hefty white paper. It's probably going to have a lot of contents, but I don't think that's a bad thing. That can just be helpful. I struggle every time I talk to a customer about multi-tenancy and stuff like that. It's like, all right, I change my mind every time I talk to someone about it. Like, oh no, do this instead. So yeah, it's just good having all those different angles somewhere, and we can collectively think it over and try to put that into words. That would be cool.
good. Yeah. Then it's in good hands now with the cooperative delivery working group. Next one, just a brief FYI, this is just getting started. We had this discussion for a while with an app delivery day at KubeCon, like a pre-KubeCon type of event, like many others have as well. There was a bit of miscommunication on how this actually gets registered, but I think we now sorted it up. We again get help from amazing people from tag security. It almost feels whenever you have a question on how to do anything in the CNCF ecosystem, you just ask tag security because they already know. So I'm now reaching out. Let's see whether we can make this work for Valencia or it's going to work for Detroit. I think with Detroit
Detroit seems a lot more likely as I swoop on in, simply because like space is kind of limited to Valencia.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, everybody's got their foot in the door already in Valencia.
And that is fantastic. Also, separately, the fact that you are running up against some timelines, and it's a really heavy lift, and I think tag security probably already told you, like, it requires a lot of things. Yeah.
Yeah, I still like the challenge. I'm not giving up before I know that I have to give up. Yeah.
So one other option that you can consider is being able to maybe do like a smaller kind of like project meeting there. If for whatever reason, like, cannot actually pull everything together for a full delivery day, being able to at least do some meetings there might also work.
Yeah, my idea was just to do it ideally still ahead of the conference if this is possible, because what we learned in the past that if people have to choose between project sessions and tag update sessions.
Totally fair. Yeah, totally fair. Reach out to the events team. Events CNCFIO is the one that handles all of that, but that's why I was dropping in today, because like I was reasonably certain that we needed to be able to like, we should plan like Detroit, yes. Valencia, we'll see.
Yeah. So I'm also already getting in contact with Lindsay. That's who the security
Perfect.
people
She's
with.
lovely. They are wonderful. They do a great job in here. So,
Oh yeah.
yeah, I
Just to
see
frame
some-
it, yeah. Just to frame it with a famous artist, we put our hands up for Detroit, but we don't put them down on Valencia yet.
fine. That is
That
completely
was a
fine.
good one.
I have zero problem with that. I just want to be able to
Yeah.
set like some tiny amount of boundaries and expectations around like what might be possible here. Yeah, no worries.
But no work is lost. I think that's the good thing. Even if we start
Exactly.
Mm.
Okay, I will now be quiet again. I just wanted to be able to swoop in and be like, no, hang on. Don't everybody start like don't book plane tickets. Don't, not just yet. You'll see each other, but maybe not for like the same thing. So, okay.
Um,
I'm actually booking plane tickets for Madrid or for Valencia right now.
That is fine. If you are booking things for like the actual like just like the conference in general, that is fine. Do not plan on like and then yeah. Thanks.
I think nobody is disappointed if it doesn't work out for Valencia, to be fair. But I'd like to start and see what's realistic. But Detroit, I think, is also great. I haven't been there in 2 years. Yeah, last topic, conveyor feedback. Is anybody from the conveyor team here?
James isn't able to make it,
Yeah.
so I'm here stepping in.
That's also a very good idea, Alex. But instead of Kava, you should take Corpinat.
Oh, really?
Yes, Corpinat is the real thing, not Kava. But that's just an insider. Corpinat is like some of the smaller vendors that agree to no longer be part of that commercialized thingy.
I'm starting to build a picture of what you take away from conferences when you go to them. You know.
Yeah, Karina. So let's talk a bit about the conveyor feedback. We had it yesterday in TAG App-Delivery, and now that it took us a bit longer, one of the reasons was Christmas was in between, and there was actually a lot to look at. And I need to go over the feedback again from tomorrow. It feels like, so when we looked at it, I think there are some things there are a lot of things in conveyor, a lot of smaller projects, repositories that contain different kind of things, like some Grafana dashboards, for example, for DevOps metrics. Some that feel kind of, like say, only temporary relevant, like migration from OpenShift 3 to OpenShift 4. So I wouldn't really see this moving into a CNCF project. For others like Crane, I just to keep everybody here the same picture. For Crane, it's really, why isn't this part of KubeVirt? I mean, if it's moving VMs to KubeVirt, I think that would be the natural place where it's supposed to be. And for some other, I think these are just more or less the structural things. There's like different licenses for different projects that make it a bit hard to understand. So some are MIT, some are Apache 2. Deployment mechanisms are different across the projects, which for a lot of, like for some of them, I think even have to use Maven to run it. There are no container images available out of the box. So it feels like a collection of useful tools, but from a project perspective, I don't see the project like doing this one thing very specifically and really focusing on it. I think that is what we were like struggling with somehow.
Well, let's walk through this really fast. So yes, it is a collection of tools, and it's a different type of project, right, than all the other projects that do one thing. And that's why it was brought forward here, so that it could be discussed and collaborated. And does it make sense on moving a tool into the KubeVirt project, or does it make more sense having a collection where you can standardize, and so that people can stand within that, standardize and bring their workloads into Kubernetes? And moving things that say OpenShift out, yes, absolutely, that makes sense. Standardizing on the license, yep, that makes sense. But what I'm not hearing so far is a blocker for getting into Sandbox, because this is something that would be really useful to the entire Kubernetes community. I haven't heard that yet, so I'd love to hear kind of from everybody
Just to add a little bit from some of the feedback that I was discussing internally, the litmus test for projects, regardless of their status in the life cycle of their graduation process, is really going to be, what is the value to end users? And I think it's an astonishing collection of tools that you've definitely built backwards from field engineering and from requirements from particular customers, but I can't see the direct correlation to how a graduate from a university could get stuck into this, or how somebody at a small startup might necessarily. It feels like an extremely situational set of tools, and that's not to say that without value, they're tremendous. What we are suggesting is that they're more strategically targeted to the right projects. Helm has an enormous ecosystem for the plugins and add-ons. Equally to what Alois was saying around KubeVirt, this could potentially be the thing that elevates that project to the next level. So it's disappointing to hear, but ultimately, I think that a lot of the basis of our decision was, how applicable is this to the everyday person?
Well, I guess we have to define what the everyday person is. Or is it, like you just said, a university graduate? Is it somebody in corporate that wants to stand up a test environment just using DIY Kubernetes? Absolutely. And bring in their workloads and testing. I mean, I can absolutely see somebody using that collection of tools. So, or is it a, smaller business that doesn't have corporate funds, right? And wants to, so I'm trying to wrap my head around, okay, how are we defining the user? Who is, for this group, what else are your blockers for being useful to the entire community? Because I guess that's what I'm still not quite understanding.
I mean, if you go over the projects, I mean, we talked about some that I would definitely factor out, like Pilorus, for example, is a couple of Grafana dashboards, to be fair. Which I don't see, like, why is this?
Okay, I see kind of it being hung up on these Grafana dashboards. Okay, if we
not just this
through.
I mean, sorry, I mixed up, by the way, Forklift and Crane. Like Forklift, I think for KubeVirt, I think this would maybe really reside well within the KubeVirt project. For Tackle, it feels like this an analytics tool it's a very analytics heavy tool. So it's very unlikely different to all the other tools that are available. It's more or less, it serves like one purpose well. So whether it's a service mesh or it's a delivery tool, or you install the tool and you do something with it. In this case, it's more or less an analytics backend where you create, and I'm just simplifying here, not that I would just see it as a CMDB, but kind of like a CMDB for moving applications from A to B. And I think we kind of had a hard time who, except for a consultant that is tasked with migrating applications as part of a consulting engagement, would be using this.
That seems a little out of scope as far as like a full review. And it's not to say that you cannot consider it, but in large part, the TOC comes by and says, App-Delivery, we want you to be able to look at this and evaluate this in ways that we cannot. Give us feedback around this. So what I hear in this, actually most strongly, is to be able to consider breaking out the OpenShift components, like kind of moving some robust pieces over into KubeVirt, and then being able to then maybe reapply as like a conveyor project that has like a more narrowly scoped, which I think would actually then resolve the problem of like, well, who is this good for? Because then you have a much more scoped focus around how this connects into the ecosystem without trying to be like this vast collection of tools. Am I more or less giving like a good overview here as I look at people kind of staring at me quietly?
Well, when I've spoken to some of the TOC members, they voiced that it made sense that all the tools were one collection. So that's why, what's the holdup here? Does it make more sense to, should we have, a brief presentation to the TOC? That seems more a due diligence thing for incubation versus sandbox. So that's why I'm trying to understand what the next steps here are. Okay, licensing. Okay, let's investigate if it makes sense moving KubeVirt out. I still think that, standardizing and making sure all the migration tools kind of, but That's my opinion, not the project's. So
No,
thank you for that feedback, Amy.
Yeah, what I think I'm hearing as well is like the project now gets a chance to be able to decide what things here are relevant. Like you've gotten feedback of like, man, this is like kind of a really broad set of like end user pieces. And the answer may just be putting more narrative in the documentation around how you anticipate this being used, which is fine. And I see Josh nodding as well and coming off mute. So Josh, I'll pass to you.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I was just thinking like the metric stuff that Alois brought up, like showing how that's coupled with the migration tools and that it's metrics about the migration and kind of putting them together. Yeah, that's the kind of thing that I think Amy is saying.
I think you've got a great opportunity to be able to bring more narrative in here because, of course, in that tiny little box, and I've got like all the project descriptions up in here, it's really hard to be able to articulate all of the value of the project. So I understand the frustration, but I think we have some interesting project choices to make here.
I kind of remember the same thing coming when Argo tried to join. They also are a collection of individual projects, and one of the things that came up with Argo was what's the process for Argo to add projects inside the Argo umbrella, and they needed to add that narrative aligned for joining.
It was part of their incubation due diligence, and we had this discussion. What we wanted them to be clearly define what is out of scope for a number of reasons. But even I saw them a bit narrow in scope. I mean, this is again our proposal to the TOC, and eventually it's the TOC to decide. Just really take this as input. Like Thomas and I think we spent, and also Alex and other members, we like looked at over all the projects and but trying to create like this uniform picture, and we couldn't get there. So one of the reasons why it took us longer was because it was not that obvious. So maybe for the team, just take to Amy's point, take our feedback as input, as it is, and we also open for the discussions, additional feedback if you want to do it. But that's kind of where we ended up, and we are your potential end users of that project as well to some extent. So.
Thank you for that. We're hoping some of that would come out when we're in Ant Sandbox and then as moving towards incubation, but it sounds like we need to do more work to get into Sandbox. So thank you for the feedback.
I think a reapplication is fine. One thing that I am noticing, and I'm gonna kind of like, I don't actually see issues getting opened for being able to do like asynchronous feedback for like projects coming in. Talk to me about that.
No, I think there was not. I think one of the issues was that from the feedback here on the project that we really needed the time, and we were like, to be fair, all super busy by the end of the year. That's why it really took longer. And I understand it's an inconvenience, but sometimes this just happens. And it wasn't that easy for us to wrap our heads around it. So yes, we can be faster, but also give us some slack till the end of the year. Now you have.
I fully get that all of the tags went dark. Like that part is like that is not me coming by, but like that, like my challenge is more like I want to be able to move us away from being able to have like synchronous feedback in a meeting. I want to be able to have like an issue that I can, because legitimately I thought you all were not meeting today. When I checked like at the end of the day, like my time yesterday, there was no agenda for this. So like, how do I know? And I love you all very, very much. Do not look at this as me being like, but
no, I think that's a fair point. both of our co-chairs, Hong Chao and Jen, who are very good at putting together our agenda, have been off, and so I think we need to take more of a active role. Yeah, I mean Jen's in Brazil right now on holiday, so yeah, we'll take that up. We'll take that up on ourselves just to be a bit more proactive till they're back.
I think. No, and this is something that I want to be able to work with all the tags as well, is like as like the TOC says, hey, this project gets reviewed for like something. Maybe that means that I come in and open up an issue in your repost so that you know that this is on your radar. And also something for me to come by and be like, knock, knock, with love, where are we on this one? Because I feel like that's part of what kind of fell off the train here. So.
Yeah, I think, yeah, it possibly fell off the train. And to be fair, we were like really done by the end of the year. Yes. I mean, that's just human.
Look, the pandemic is still ongoing. I fully like acknowledge that.
We understand though that that this for a project is that you always want to have things move fast and quickly, and we try to do it. And on the agenda point is well taken. We actually had a discussion to be better on the agenda to work on a roadmap together with the working groups and so forth. So
I mean, I was pretty sure that you all were going to meet, which is why I dropped in, and you know. I really see that there will be a lot more availability to get more people involved than just 12 here, like kind of listed, if we start moving towards being able to use the issue queues and using just like slightly more over in GitHub is really all I'm pointing at.
yeah.
It has been a little confusing with conveyor, and that I'm looking for the issue also because yeah, we could have more open discussions. Just kind of developing a common understanding of things. That would be good.
And I am perfectly happy to take the action item of like when a project comes through TOC review and they say, hey, go back into like a tag, that I run around and give you all directly which project it is, rather than trying to be able to put it on the project. I think that's a process improvement that would definitely have helped things move along here. As long as you all are okay with me coming by and tasking you with, hey, at some point, can you please like look at this project if they are still interested?
So
Yeah,
I think this is more or less our job. So
okay.
In the tag. So I think for conveyor it was a bit the information flow was not as good as it could be, because I think we heard about it from conveyor that we have to do something.
Yeah.
I think they noted it in
We've
the.
also been confused, like what are we supposed to do for a sandbox?
Yeah, that's on me. That one is definitely on me, as far as like the TOC says, hey, tag App-Delivery, can you come by and review this? We want to know a little bit more in depth, and I thus far have kind of left it up to the projects to be able to say, hey, projects, like if you're interested, go hunt the tags down, and that might not actually be like the correct and welcoming path, if you will.
So in this case, it would have been nice if we would have got a concrete task or what we should fulfill for that. So in this case, we made more or less a full review of the project and tried to build our own opinion up on that. And it would have been nice if we would get some kind of issue for such things.
Yeah, I think we fell back to due diligence for incubation and just trying to check off the boxes because we're nice people, and that's obviously took longer.
Okay, so let's do this, because we're gonna have like a kind of a reshuffling of like TOC liaisons and things. I can definitely say at the process note for like the end of the sandbox review meetings, we get more of like a sense of what it is that the TOC wants to see from the tag, and I will put that into the issue so that you know what the checklist that you need to be able to go through. Okay, good. See, then we don't have to go back to like the will this project graduate? That actually is not an issue to be able to be considered for sandbox. There are plenty of sandbox things right now that will never reach graduation, which I recognize is a challenging thing for like, how do we evaluate? What should we look for? So we'll work on this one. Okay.
I just want to clarify, is the conclusion that Amy's going to open the issues, or that one of us in the tag is going to open the issues?
No, this is my job. This is my job, because I have context and you will not.
Write that down.
Okay.
Awesome.
And also I am staff, so therefore I am here to be able to serve. Yes.
Okay.
Are we complete on this? Is there anything else that we need to do here? Okay, cool.
Yeah, I think also from the agenda item, just pretty much everything we had for today for the synchronous meeting.
What's in the notes here below about the GitOps and Open GitOps transitional state?
Yeah.
Does anyone have any context to that?
I do.
Is that just because? Oh, there's Chris. Yeah.
Hey, sorry, I missed that. I was typing to somebody else. What was the question?
Just asking if you could elaborate on the GitOps working group, Open GitOps transition.
Yes. So, I mean, GitOps working group is a short-lived thing, right? Like all working groups are. And Open GitOps is the thing that sprung out of the GitOps working group. if that makes sense, right? So if you're going to GitOpsCon, that's put on by the Open GitOps group. If you're going to, start your journey down GitOps, you might come to a thing that we build at some point, right? So yeah, that's kind of the transition there. And then we had a chair step down. Leonardo stepped down, I think 3 weeks ago. I was the only person that nominated themselves. And then there was supposed to be a voting period, but we forgot to announce, hey, please vote. So we announced that after the fact. And we're just waiting on the results now.
You are
Don't need to
awesome.
vote. Just do it.
I know, right?
You have my
Right.
blessing.
Thank you.
That's
Just,
all that matters.
Just for clarity, sorry, the GitOps working group, when will that be sunset then? When is that working?
Not sure on that yet, to be honest with you. Amy, do you have any details there? I mean, I don't think we've set a date in concrete terms yet, but we are making the moves, if that makes sense.
I'm not sure if I understand the question. Use more words or slightly less, one of the two.
Yes, so GitOps working group is spinning off Open GitOps as its long living thing.
Okay.
And the working
That's
group
already
will
existing.
Right. The working
Okay.
group will eventually be sunset at some point.
Oh, okay. I mean,
Just don't
like,
know when, and I'm not sure if you've heard anything either. Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
circus.
We're still in the
monkeys, yours?
process of like moving data and stuff like that, so it's just in the initial phases. So.
Yeah. Okay. Officially, I don't believe I have any kind of like I have no opinion on this. You all seem perfectly capable of being able to. You will know when it is deprecated. How's that?
Yes. Yes.
Cool.
Yeah.
Then when
for
that
sure.
happens, turn it read only, make it clear that it's deprecated, and move on.
All right. I mean, we have
Cool.
our meeting later today, so I will bring this up then.
Okay. I mean,
when do we intend
in
to
large
sunset?
part, I don't see anyone kind of sunsetting things in like Q1 right now, just because like
Yeah, no.
yeah. But like definitely by like Q3.
Yeah, I would say before KubeCon in A, we're gonna be
That's
out
why
of the working
Q3
group.
is
Yeah.
out in there.
Close-ish.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. When you meet up as everyone is gone, you will know when it is deprecated. It is fine.
It'll be obvious. Yeah.
If you build it, they will come. Just the opposite.
Well,
if you
yeah.
build it with symlinks, it'll come.
If you have
or
built it,
301, since it's
that
the
is
web.
compelling. Like if it is fully deprecated, then being able to like just redirect into like the proper place where things are
Right.
supposed to be. Because then that gives people, if for whatever reason they stumbled across an artifact, a way to be able to kind of still participate. Like
Yeah.
that actually is a valid request. No dead ends.
This would be a really nice success story to share at the NA maintainers track. I think that'd be really cool to talk about how you've worked through GitOps, how they've worked through the working group, and you've had this whole new thing spring out of it.
Yeah, I agree. I will take those notes to the meeting this afternoon.
Second note, app delivery day at KubeCon. We spoke about this, right? I think we skirted it at the beginning of the call. Okay, conveyor feedback. Yeah. Alois, anything from your side? Did I miss something?
That's just the notes. They correspond to the agenda.
Just notes, yeah.
Just notes, yeah. I think we covered everything we wanted to have on here today. Obviously, feedback from Amy to work more async. We're trying to put more into the issues, and roadmap work's ongoing.
And I'll even help, I promise. But like it just like, oh God, like that, where is it? Oh, it's nowhere. Oh no.
Yeah, I mean, maybe if we have you here, Amy, maybe by March, we will hear back from projects that are currently in TUC review, whether they will be ready to be accepted in either incubation or graduation for KubeCon. The KubeCon is usually when products want to move to the next level.
Yeah.
Some that are waiting. I'm thinking that the TUC reshuffling or like getting new people in might not necessarily help there.
Previously, before the election closed yesterday, I would have said that it was a concern, given as both Justin and Ricardo, who are the two that currently have outstanding reviews, were reelected. Probably not that big of an issue. The challenge is just being able to find time. What I will say is March 8th is going to be our next sandbox review meeting. So that's the one where we can start putting the process into place for being able to say, okay, here's an issue. If the project doesn't want to, they can close the issue on their own. If for whatever reason they're like, man, CNCF is not a fit for us time, they can close the issue. I think I'm more focused on being able to get the sandbox pieces together. The incubation and graduation stuff is really driven by TOC sponsors now.
Yeah, I mean, Liz actually today submitted backstage the due diligence, so that was on time, like
Excellent.
perfectly on time for her.
Excellent. Yay. I haven't even
I'm
looked
just,
yet. Yay.
yeah, I mean, it's just despite my personal interest in the project, but the captain due diligence now been going on for almost a year.
Correct. I am. That one is on my radar. We can take that one offline. Yes.
Yeah. So backstage from our side is done, and good.
Yes, that one is also on my radar as well, simply because Liz is stepping down. Her term ends Friday, and the hope is to be able to get backstage into public comment before she steps away. If not, we'll do a handoff to another TOC member and kind of drive forward from there.
I think a bit more than an hour ago, she sent over the due diligence document, so that should be good by Friday.
Okay, I'm not seeing it on the list, but that doesn't mean it's not there. So
I think she wanted to give us a fair chance as the tech chairs to have a look at it.
Oh, perfect. Okay. Okay, good. That is excellent. It's Wednesday. That's running through reviews. That is a lovely thing to be able to have happen. Perfect.
Okay, I think then we are done for today.
Okay. Good to see you all. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye all.